Hi. So, there were these two young fish swimming along, and they happened to meet an older fish who nods at them and goes, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" The two young fish swim on for a bit, and eventually one looks over to the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" This story was told by the American writer David Foster Wallace. The moral of the story is that the most obvious important realities are often the ones harder to see and to talk about. This is similar to an analogy of the boiling frog. The premise is that if you put a frog into a boiling water, it will jump out immediately. However, if you put the water into a room temperature water and brought the water to boil slowly, it might not perceive and be aware of the danger and will later be cooked to death. So disclaimer, do not go back trying to find a frog to test out this experiment. This is just analogy, okay? So what I'm trying to express from these two stories are not about how smart we need to be, nor it is about the evergreen cliche of the public speaking genre, like the 7 things you gotta do to be successful. No. It is merely about the journey to experience life expansion is through learning how to think of the obvious but unseen choices that you might actually have. So, true story, there was this chocolate shop that sells hundreds choices of chocolates. And the shop owner later found out that if I reduced the options to just 20 choices, the sales increased tremendously. Why? Because people like to simplify the choice. People feel that if I can get to choose the best chocolate among these 220 choices, that feels good enough. As long as this is the safest choice, as long as this is the most socially convenient choice, as long as this is economically promising. Customers also fear that with more options, it means that better choices are always available. And it creates conflict with your ego, with our ego. You will always worry that, what if my choice is not the best and others have chosen the best? And one brand that knows too well of this psychology would be Apple. Every year they will go, here is a better one. Do you want to feel socially acceptable this year? Yeah, and it works. And there was this old lady who once asked me this question, and this question I ended up embarrassing myself. It was a very simple question. And the question was, how do you feel? And my immediate response to that question was, normal, okay. And she continued asking, okay, but how do you feel? What was so humiliating about that question was that, in fact, I realized I was in such deep default setting in my day in and day out adult working life. I am in such an autopilot mode that normal seems to be the safest answer to everything, every relationship, every question, and every situation. And I had also forgot when was the last time I made a conscious decision about how I want to feel. I know it sounds silly that the idea of choosing how to feel seems a bit inhuman, but in fact, I have been doing that all the time in WhatsApp. When I receive a message from someone, I say, I think he is trying to tell the joke. You know what? Let me send a smiling face. But wait, it's 2020. Smiling face is not enough. It's not believable. How about that? A laughing face with tears. That should do it. And the whole time I'm doing that with a long and boring face. All right, it's funny. Next, it's funny. Next. Like the time that when I walk into the room full of strangers and I get a sudden sense of awkwardness, and if I ask myself, why do I feel awkward? And what would my default setting tell me? Of course you feel awkward. It's normal. Of course, you don't need any of them. Or maybe the time when I go to a bubble tea shop and I place my order with the cashier and she confirmed the order to me twice and she still got it wrong. More bubble, less sugar, and at the end, oolong cha, no bubble, no sugar. All the time, I don't know why, but I will get upset. And I will ask myself, why do I get upset? Of Of course I will get upset. That's a normal reaction to have, right? I confirmed the order twice and you still got it wrong. It's a normal, perfect reaction to have. So what I try to suggest today is to find the irony in being normal. You see, human, we used to be hunters. We fight for survival, we hunt for the group, and sometimes we run from saber-toothed tiger. You know saber-toothed tiger? And right now, what do we run from? I would suggest maybe some old primary school friend walking towards you that you don't want to be recognized with. Okay. That's what we run from today. And that's also why all the hunting game, fighting game, farming game are so popular today, because it is in our DNA. The desires to do all this discomfort are always inside of us. Do you know what happens if you put a tiger in a cage for all its life? There are two possibilities. The first one is that the tiger would always be angry. Always. And the second possibility is that the tiger will hardly feel any emotions anymore. It just doesn't care anymore. The default setting of us are exactly the cage that locks us in. Do you know what are the side effects of year after year, day in, day out, routine, same thing? What are the side effects of that? What are the side effects of having to believe in the normal standards by today's society? I categorize the two outcomes. The first, I would say, is the cynical. You know, cynical when people just get angry and frustrated and tired very easily. You know, when someone just cut through your line and just feel annoyed. That's the first kind. That's still fine. For me, that's still fine. You still feel something, right? And then the second type is what I call the see how type. Everyone here knows the see how type, don't you all? Hey, what you want for dinner? See how lah. Hey, next week, go where? See how lah, see how. Oh, that is the worst, right? But those are all the side effects of being stuck in our default system and not aware of the possible choices that we actually have. One more story. When I was in college, I was at Mark, and I was eating my thing, and then my friend was sitting there, and you could see that when sometimes people just feel like they're starting to understand life, and then they would just look into the space, and then they're starting to understand something. And that moment, I feel like he's like, you know what, like Thanos putting on a glove with 5 Infinity Stones. He feels like, oh. Hey, bro, he asked me, what do you think is the normal way for a man to die? Halfway eating mee goreng, I say, bro, chim le, bro. Halfway eating mee goreng, he asked me such heavy question. But I really thought about that. Like what our previous speaker has shared with us, so many causes of death, right? But what would be the normal one? And then after some consideration, I could reply to him, I really don't think there's a normal way for men to die. I mean, every death is a tragedy to the ones who love us, right? And then he goes, yeah, but if there is no normal way to die, but why do we think that there is one normal way to live? And I was like, boom! And then it's like I put on the infinity glove. Oh yeah, that's right. That's exactly how I felt. So I was in college. What were the options I have? Study, do my homework, maybe chase after girls. Sorry, my wife is here. So those were my options. So what my decision was? I'd be a rapper. Yeah, so beyond the options that I have, I decide something out of my options. I know it seems unbelievable. How about I freestyle a bit? What? Yo, this is TEDxUTM, and let me show you who I really am. In this life, the end too the same, and this is how we live the game. Peace! All right, back to the serious part. I still got 8 minutes. And when I was 26, I was a working adult. So what were the options in my life back then was to make as much progress in my career, right? So during that time, I decided to challenge my friends and I. to host a charity event in 5 days. The first day, we had to raise more than 60,000 ringgit of funds. The second day, we had to go to the school, talk to the principal, talk to hundreds of students, and talk to hundreds more of their parents. And the third day, we had to invite more than 70 different volunteers from all over Malaysia. So after this event, I later moved on to venture into F&B business from my usual construction business. And during that time, I opened 10 F&B outlets in Malaysia and Singapore, and I failed. I failed really, really hard. And what would be the options for me to have at that time is to go back to my construction business or just find a job elsewhere. And if you want to feel alive, you've got to find your adventures. And at the end, I would like to ask everyone, what would be your definition of your ultimate freedom of life? Some would say it's money. Some would say it's knowledge. If it's money, if you have set a goal saying that if I want to breathe free, I want to make maybe like that much money. But by the time that you make that much money, you have already programmed yourself so deeply into your default setting that wanting more money is the normal way to live. So that doesn't sound very free to some of us, right? And some will say, knowledge, I gotta know more. This is the ultimate freedom of life. But knowing more means you question more. And question more means you gotta know more. So it may not sound very free for some of us. But for me, the ultimate freedom is that regardless if you are rich or you are poor, university graduates or no diploma at all, you always have those choices. And those choices may not seem available or much. But you have to understand that choices and decisions are not the same thing. You get to choose what are beyond the current options that you want. And by knowing that you always get to decide, you are always free. And you get to be the old fish that asks yourself, how is the water? Thank you.